everybody, how's it going? This is Max and Trev with BuzzTox here with our Westworld episode 10 finale analysis video.
Trying to make it epic.
Unbelievable. This show is the best. It's the best. It's the best. They wrapped up the story in a perfect little bow. It stands on its own. Wrapped everything up while leaving little nuggets for the future.
Well, it could be like the world's fucked. You know what I mean? Like it's the world's fucked ending. Then we don't need a season 2.
But it's gonna be crazy. But just everything about the show, I just got to say, was like the acting is like the best I've ever seen in a show. The music, unbelievable.
Amazing.
The story, the fact that they incorporated all of these different timelines and just firing at all cylinders, unbelievable. And I love it because for season 2. They want to have the same kind of mysterious, like, in-depth story. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited for anything from the show. Because they've definitely proved themselves and then some with this first season.
Oh, yeah. And let's get into the analysis. But before we do, I just want to say, this is a finale. So a lot of the scenes that we're going to touch on is really just build up to a reveal. So there's a lot of scenes here that I don't have much to say because it's just confirming what we already know. However, I have a lot of important shit to say in some scenes that apply to season 2. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But we pretty much start with Dolores being awoken by Arnold. And she says that, I'm in a dream. I slept a long time and one day I awoke. And she said that your voice is the first voice. Is the first thing that I remember. And I understand what you're trying to tell me, she says. I think this just foreshadows the ending of this episode because I feel like Dolores is the journey to consciousness.
Yeah, like we've always been saying.
Yeah, and that's what Arnold wanted for her, and I feel like she never really achieved that until this episode. But then in this scene, we see her without any skin on. I thought the effects were amazing.
Yeah.
It was like Ex Machina.
Oh, yeah.
It was just really well done. And then he welcomes her to the world. And Dolores is actually remembering this while she's shaving the man in black.
Yep. Out front where everything went down.
Yeah, exactly. So she's shaving him, and then he's pretty much saying that, you were always obsessed with this place. And he did say that, when I came here, when you brought me here, it was swallowed by sand. So that obviously foreshadows the reveal.
Yeah. Cue the both of us looking at each other excitedly because we were right.
I know. As we were going, we're like, okay. And we were like little nuggets throughout. And that's what I noticed about this episode, too. They did leave a lot of pre-revealed nuggets to hint up to all these big reveals.
Yeah, they had to. That's what we've been saying since the get-go. It's not, like when you're going back, you're not going to remember every single thing that hinted at it. It's the big ones. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
They ran through all the big points where you're like, well, what does that mean? And when they showed up at that place and it was buried in sand and she didn't know what time it was and all this, that, and this and the other thing, we learned why.
Yeah.
But it was still a hint for what the actual reveal was. That's what's really cool about the show.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And while she's having this conversation, she sees Arnold. And then we see William with Logan, and he's pretty much dragging him by a horse. So he's taking the game a little bit too far, I think. And then he goes and recruits Lawrence because he wants to find Dolores. That's pretty much what happens. And then we cut to Teddy. So these scenes are going to be flying through him. Teddy arrives in Sweetwater, and he remembers that everyone's dead. He sees everyone dead, and then he sees Dolores walking. And then that kind of jogs his memory that he has to pursue Dolores. And he ends up shooting that poor guy who shoved him.
Yep.
So, to me, Ford gave him this. Ford gave him the ability to access his past loops, which kind of allowed him to remember to be a part of this current storyline that Ford has.
Or Ford gave him the ability to recall. We'll probably get into this near the end with how everything wrapped up, as it is still kind of left theoretical for a lot of these people as to where they were left and how they were programmed. Because I feel like he opened the gates and let a lot of people make their own decisions.
Well, that's what I think. I think he made a story to allow people to make their own decisions, right? And he made the story for the hosts. But what's funny is that we really haven't seen his story yet. And we think by watching this season we've seen what his story is. We actually haven't.
No.
We've seen the beginning of the story that he's created.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because all of these hosts aren't conscious. They can't make their own decisions yet. And the result of this shooting that he created and these things that he's giving Teddy to allow him to see past loops and that kind of stuff, that will be the benchmark to lead them into what he wanted.
No, exactly.
In his next storyline. So, and I have a lot more to say about that later, how his storyline currently, it's not the shooting at the town.
No.
That's where the story begins.
Yeah. That's sort of like,
we're-
I would say that's almost like a distraction.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing that story unfold in season 2. But then we see Dolores and the Man in Black enter the church, and Dolores pretty much flashes back to herself, talking to Arnold, and she tells him she knows where the maze ends, and they go into the graveyard. And then we flash back again to the present, and Dolores is there with the Man in Black, and they find this toy maze. She flashes back again to Arnold, and they have a conversation about consciousness. And Arnold tells her that he had a theory about consciousness, that it was a pyramid. But then he realized that consciousness was more of a maze. You don't go upward to consciousness. You go inward.
Yes.
And he said that he gave Dolores his own voice in order to pursue consciousness. But that isn't consciousness. That's just his voice programmed into Dolores. And then he ends it in a question. He asks Dolores if she understands what voice he wants her to hear.
Yes.
And she doesn't understand, but obviously he wants her to hear her own voice.
Exactly.
And that is the pursuit of consciousness. And Dolores, to me personally, she has never reached consciousness in any timeline except for the present timeline. When we see her going crazy with William, that's her experiencing a bunch of loop changes, but she hasn't reached true consciousness where she can communicate with herself.
No. There's been hints where you see her seeing herself along the way.
But that is all in the present. That's what I would argue.
Yeah.
Every time she sees herself as the fortune teller lady, when she sees herself in the crowd which pulls her away from William, those are all smart cuts, and that is her in the present seeing herself.
Yeah, that was her on current timeline.
That's a visual representation of the internal dialogue that she is having with herself.
She's clearing the snow from her frequencies, and that was her breaking through on those moments.
Yeah, but then Arnold tells her that both of them have to tell Robert to keep the park closed because he says that Dolores is alive. And I think that was Arnold's key mistake, is that he empathized with the hosts so fast instantly where he thought that they pursued consciousness, but they truly didn't. Mm-hmm. So that was like a danger because he wanted to keep the park closed because he thought that they reached true consciousness, but they actually didn't.
Yeah.
So then Ford kind of finished off Arnold's work.
In the creepiest, most convoluted way ever, but he did a masterful job.
I know. And then she tells the man, and then in the present time, she tells the Man in Black that if she had the answer, they would set her free. And the answer really is just her own voice. Again, It's constant consciousness. And then there's a lot of flashes here. And then we get another flash back to Dolores and Arnold again. And he wants to obviously break the loop before it begins. He wants to pretty much exterminate the park so Ford can't really open it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sees herself shooting everyone. So that's foreshadowing the big reveal to come.
Yeah.
And the Man in Black just isn't having it. And he just ends up, beating the shit out of her.
Yeah.
To try and get answers. And then she keeps seeing her and Teddy shooting people. Her and Teddy keep shooting people. And then Man in Black tells her that he does own the majority of the shares. This is his world. And he does want it to be true. He wants Westworld to mean something. So he wants them to be free. He has the same motivations as Ford, except he has a little different outlook on why. And then Dolores continues to say that she knows someone who's true and he's coming to come save her.
So, yeah, she's thinking William.
Yeah, exactly. So then it flashes to William, almost doing that foreshadowing with the cuts. And they're pretty much just looking at a camp to try and save Dolores. And Logan talks, and that pisses William off, so he punches him in the face.
Yeah.
He's like, shut up. But yeah, he really out alphaed the fuck out of Logan.
Big time.
So I guess after Logan did not die, I guess he out alphaed him so bad that Logan couldn't stand up to him after they exited the park.
Yeah, that would be quite the awkward drive home. I think I said that in my last one, but after this episode, it would be like, oh my God.
Yeah, Jesus,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And then we go to the entrance of the park, and we're with Charlotte and Lee. And Lee says that he made Abernathy into somewhat of a character. And he's thinking that it's a good blackmail piece, but she says think bigger. And Lee pretty much demands full creative control of the park. And she says that he can have it as long as he makes things simpler. So, obviously, like, we know what Lee wants, and Lee doesn't understand why Ford has all these, like, very loose loops. Like, with Lee, what he would prefer is to have really strict storytelling where he can tell his stories, right? So it's like, I wonder what his role is going to be in season 2.
Oh, he's just the fall guy. He's the nincompoop.
I know, but he's a storyteller, and all these hosts are reaching consciousness. But he's going to be rewriting stories if the park does open again. So I can't find a place to put him.
I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll have to get into it. I don't know what is season 2 looking like. Like, I have a sort of idea, like a framework. But to even consider him, like, writing stories is weird at this point.
It's everything's gone to shit. It just doesn't add up. And we're going to have to do a season 2 video to talk about that stuff. But then we see pretty much Maeve be rebuilt. And I like the way they did it. You see her, like, take the milk bath.
Yeah.
And then when she wakes up, she raises the aggression and lowers the pain sensitivity to Armistice and Hector. So shit's getting real.
Very real. Awesome scene.
Yeah. And then right after that, Charlotte talks to Ford, and she pretty much tells him that he has to retire. And you can see his little plan in the background, all the soldiers standing on the outskirts of the old town. And I love how they showed us that in, like, episode 5 or episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
It was, like, exactly what the finale is.
Yeah.
So it's those little nuggets that I love.
It's like a miniature war game he's got going on.
It's so weird seeing him, like, even in episode 4, like, he's literally planning his death.
Yeah.
It's, like, the craziest thing ever. And the one thing that wasn't certain about his story was his death, because he was counting on Dolores being conscious.
I know.
That's what's so crazy about it.
It is crazy.
He's such a badass, man. Such a badass. And then I loved when she said, like, oh, we're going to simplify the host. And then Ford's like, what if I just destroy all my toys and go home?
Yeah.
So funny. But then the show gets a little bit weird. The Necro dude ends up really liking Hector.
Yeah.
So he pretty much takes him into a private room, puts on these
Wait a second.
silence counseling
Not
headphones.
really a private room.
Yeah, which I don't understand.
Like, sides of the walls are glass.
Yeah, like what? Why is he fucking people in glass? Like, it just doesn't. Like, this part of the episode just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. And it's like it's like a habitual thing because the other guy's like, oh, not again. You're gonna get caught, man.
Oh my god. So then it's the classic, like, comedy where shit's going down in the background, but the dude listening to music has no idea.
Exactly.
And Armistice bites off the guy's finger, throws him through the glass.
Okay.
Shit's going down.
Standing ovation for Armistice in this episode, just hands down.
Dude, she went from a character that I was just like, yeah, whatever, to a character that I love.
Yeah.
She is awesome.
She's amazing.
Everything about her in this episode was fantastic. And I think we're going to be seeing that throughout the seasons. Like, I think a lot of hosts that we've seen in the background that we haven't thought much of, I think we're going to see some characters make kind of like primary character status or secondary character status.
I hope so, because she was background badass and she was foreground badass in this. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Just everything she did was awesome. And she ends up grabbing Sylvester and holds him, like, hostage. And Sylvester pretty much tells Maeve that her core code, the person who changed her core code, whoever that was a question that she had, like, 2 episodes ago. that change in the code allowed her to wake up from sleep mode.
Yes.
And he said that it was Arnold. So it's these little hints that they're putting in before the finale, which I love. Like, oh, somebody changed her to allow her to wake up. It was Ford, but it hints at, like, why would somebody change the code to allow her to wake up?
Yeah.
And at this point, like, the majority of the audience thinks that it's this figure, Arnold, who should be dead.
Yeah. Like the ghost in the machine.
Exactly. And I'm so glad they didn't go that route.
I think I even said that's what I was thinking they were going that route, but I'm glad that they didn't as well. And Ford was just using another account to hide his trail, basically.
Yeah, it was genius. But and then we see Teddy get off a train, shoots a guy, takes a horse. That's it. And then Dolores is passionate that, Teddy's coming, or William is coming, because this love is real. And she says that William will find her. And the men in black said he knew a man named William and then told her the story. He said that Dolores gave him a reason to fight, and he realized that he had a taste for fighting. And then you get a flashback to William. You see him interrogating this guy to find Dolores, and then he says, I'll give you the first shot. Again, another nugget.
Yeah.
The man in black said that in episode 1.
Cue another excited look at each other. Because we're
I know,
it's
we
just
looked at each other
second
immediately.
nail in the coffin here.
Yeah, and then he said he went to the town swallowed by sand, and she was gone. You see him go there. You see the picture fall out, which is a little different than the way I thought it was going to go. But yeah, I guess that's fine. And then the man in black says pretty much that while he was looking for Dolores, he found himself. And then we see Logan and William part ways. I thought it was hilarious. Had him naked on the horse.
Oh, yeah, I lost my shit when he smacked that horse on the ass.
so funny. He called Will a piece of work. And William confidently says that, we definitely have to increase our holdings of the park, of our company. And that really pissed Logan off. And then he just slapped the horse's ass and he went off into the sunset.
Yeah.
To me, yeah, Logan most definitely is not dead. Logan is alive. We could possibly see an old Logan next season. I just think that, Logan was so shocked to see what kind of person William can actually be.
Yeah, he served the story.
And I think it was a wake-up call, and I think William really made Logan his bitch.
Well, big time. He was just like he was the reality anchor that William had while in this place. And it was just a way of keeping him on path. And then once he finally figured it out, he was literally an anchor. So he just let him go. And we saw it in this scene.
Well, yeah, and I think we really learned, William learned how to be alpha in a weird way. So it's like, as soon as he leaves the park, he's not just going to go back to introvert William. I think he's going to show a little bit more power because that's what he kind of discovered.
He knows how to get what he wants. Authority.
Yeah, so that's what he did. As soon as he left the park, he pursued what he wanted in, the very alpha way he discovered to get what he wanted in the park. And what I found interesting is that he said, this path did always lead me back to you. The man in black said that to Dolores. And I think that just speaks to Teddy, because Teddy says that to Dolores later in the episode. My path always leads you back. My path always leads me back to you, which I think just shows, I think Teddy is a really good recreation of William in a way, which we've been talking about forever.
They didn't resolve that for sure, but it seems pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Right? We've been saying that since conception of William in this season. It just seemed that was almost exactly what Teddy did in the first episode. And everything about him seems like he's been programmed to be exactly like William. So what is the connection here? And we got to learn what it actually was in this episode. But they still haven't said, yes, we programmed Teddy to be exactly like William.
No.
But come on. It seems pretty obvious.
They may reveal it or they may not. It may just be something in the background that they don't have to address, but who knows. But then William, older William, man in black, said that, as time went on, he ended up going on, other adventures while Dolores stayed on her loop. And it makes sense to me that he got bitter. They did it like literally. They did it perfectly.
They did it exactly how I pictured it in my head. Like, almost
Really?
to an exact T, other than Dolores was on the other side of the frame. Like, almost, I almost had the cinematography of the shot in my head.
Yeah, I thought I nailed the Sweetwater part. To me, that made the most sense. For her to drop the jam or whatever it is, and to see another guy pick it up, and him being not significant to her at all. Like, I think that's something that would really just kill him. Because after everything they went through, he, like, fell in love with her. Like, you're damn straight that'll spiral him into, like, a frickin' depression.
No, exactly. And it was perfect. Again, amazing acting. You see it written on his face. And it was just like awesome. A perfect scene.
Yeah.
And it solidified our theory. Like, it was just like, oh, this is exactly what happened, because it had to happen. It had to set him up in this, like, bitter old man kind of story that he's in.
No, exactly. And it makes total sense to me. And the man in black keeps asking her where this maze is, and Dolores ends up crying. And she says that she actually isn't crying for herself. She's crying for William because of what he's become. And then she, out of nowhere, turns into a badass. She wipes away the tears and is like, oh, the dinosaurs went extinct too, asshole.
Yeah.
And now someday humans are going to be extinct too. And then she's like, a new god is going to walk the earth who cannot die. And then she goes on to say the famous line, this world does not belong to you or the people who came before, but someone who is yet to come. And that was Wyatt's key, like, slogan. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Teddy said that Wyatt said. So I think that something that is left to come, obviously, is Dolores right now, because she's the only host that is conscious. And I think she's going to have to take an authoritative role in making sure these hosts achieve consciousness.
Yeah, but I think someone she means as a whole, like AI.
No, I agree. I'm just trying to give it like a little more detailed context. But yeah, I think it's obviously more broad scope than that. But then she beats the shit out of him.
Big time.
And Man in Black ends up stabbing her. And it's going to be hard for me to do the transition from Man in Black to William now. It's going to be very difficult. I'm going to try. But then Teddy ends up rescuing Dolores. The guy, poor William, has like a dislocated shoulder and he got shot like 6 times. And all Dolores wants to do is be taken where the mountains meet the sea. So then after that, we get a scene with William talking to Ford. And Ford tells William that, you know, you found the maze. I know that you were looking at the park to bring meaning to your life. But these are just games.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this toy. And the host, and he told him that this maze or this game isn't meant for you. And we know Man in Black has the same motives as Ford. He wants them to be free. He wants truth because he wants true stakes. And then Ford quickly tells William that he will find his new narrative much more satisfying. Further foreshadowing to what's going to happen.
Yeah, he doesn't want to play paintball anymore. He wants to play with real guns.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that would get frustrating over time. Like, he actually wants to live in Westworld.
Well, no, he just, like, he's done everything, but loves the world. So now he wants it to be his world.
It's almost like he wants to be a part of it, because he wants to be like the everyman. He wants the ability to die. He wants the ability to, you know, all of these things.
No, like
because
that's what
he
I mean.
wants truth.
He wants the challenge of it being real. Because he's experienced the fakeness of it this whole time. And that's the one thing he can't come to grips with, is the fakeness of it.
Yeah, but the fakeness of it is like, you can't have a business and make it real.
No, I know, and that's what he struggles with. And that's what he was seeking in the maze. He was thinking that he would get this true experience because he was misguided by it.
Yeah, true.
Because it wasn't for him.
But then we go to Maeve, Felix, Hector, and Armistice, and they go down to sub-level 83. And we find out that, and Felix finds out that Bernard is a host. That was hilarious. He did like robotic arms because he thought that he was a host too. And Bernard tells Maeve after they revived him that a handful of hosts over the years have ended up being like Maeve, but most of them become insane.
Yeah.
And that made me think of Abernathy immediately.
Yeah.
Because it's like once you hear your own voice, it's, yeah, I guess it pushes you. Either you finally make it to the center, which is almost impossible, or you get pushed out on the fringes.
Yeah. You get lost in the maze.
Yeah, and if you look at the maze, I think it's a good way to think about it. Because if you look at the maze, there's a head, and it's a perfect circle, right? And if you're playing the game, you can't roll the ball into the center of the maze. You almost have to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
The ball has to actually physically jump and land in the hole to reach consciousness.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, and that's just a testament to how hard achieving consciousness is. You have to take that leap of faith and land in the center. And Abernathy and the majority of the hosts couldn't do that. But while Bernard was telling her this, he didn't realize that Maeve is actually following a storyline. And Maeve wants to forget about her past memories, but she's entirely based on her past memories, so Bernard tells her that you just will lose yourself. And he also discovers that Maeve was given every single decision that she's ever made in her little rebellion. And that was the one reveal that blew my mind.
Oh, it was crazy. This was the biggest shocker of the whole episode.
That was the one shocker for me, was, oh shit. Like, I thought Maeve was actually achieving consciousness.
Yeah. It's still an enigma with her. I still don't get what happened with her. Even on the final scene.
We'll get into it later, but I'm confident she isn't conscious yet. She hasn't reached sentience.
No. I think she was
100%,
just put on the path.
Exactly. She's 100% following this storyline that was given to her by Ford. And her whole role in this is the distraction.
What I would say, like I said, we'll probably go into it a little bit later, but she was dragged to the entrance of the maze for herself. And this, the first decision that she made that we talk about a little bit later, is the first sort of step into the maze for her.
See, I don't know. I'll debate you about that. We'll see. But what we find interesting is another foreshadow is Bernard says, it says when you reach the train, and then Maeve rips up the tablet. So he was going to tell her what she was going to do.
Yeah.
Whether she leaves the train or whether she stays on the train. And that was left for the audience to debate, whether she leaves or doesn't leave.
Yeah.
And we'll wait to talk about that. But then we go to the game room, and while this is happening, we find out that sublevel B83, the cold storage temperature is down. All these hosts are frozen. So obviously they're unfreezing the hosts. And the network is down, so they can't see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh shit.
Yeah. Hack attack.
And then this was another reveal that kind of blew my mind. Dolores and Teddy finally arrive at the beach. And Teddy tells her, my path leads me back to you. And Dolores tells Teddy about them being trapped in this world. And they're truly being trapped by themselves. And what I'm pretty sure she means by that is they're trapped by their minds.
Mm-hmm.
They're trapped from achieving consciousness. And Dolores ends up dying, and then Teddy says that we can find a way, Dolores. And you see him kind of smile like he has faith, and he's like happy in a way. And he says someday, and maybe it's the beginning after all. And to me, that is 100% season 2 talk.
Yeah.
And that's why he always said someday, because you're constantly in a loop, and they never know when they're going to achieve consciousness. That's why they never have a time. You know, we'll get conscious someday when we get there. We're going to have to keep looping and looping and suffering until we hit that benchmark. But the big reveal that this was also a part of Ford's story blew my mind.
Oh, it was huge.
Because he controlled everything. But then that makes you go back and think, like, what did he have control over? Like, we see Dolores kind of becoming conscious in a way, Was he just allowing Dolores to do that?
Well, she's probably followed that same path a lot, right?
She has. She's done it many, many times.
And then
so I guess he just
always
he
wanted
let
to go
her do
back
it.
to that spot.
And then in episode 5, I believe, he sat down with her and kind of got like an update.
Yeah, it seemed like he was sort of egging her on to go one way or another. But it's like, how could he factor in that the Men in Black would eventually stab her to get her in that position where she wasn't just dead, she was dying, and long enough to get Teddy to show up and bring her. Like, it's crazy. You sort of have to
absolutely nuts.
Leap of faith it with the writing on that, but it was still badass because on every level he planned for everything.
Yeah, he did pretty damn good job. And while this reveal is happening, Charlotte ends up sending Lee away to go get Abernathy. And then outside of Westworld, stuff starts going to shit. People in the game room realize that the hosts have actually escaped. Everything ends up shutting down, and they go into security lockdown. And the funniest part of the episode, Maeve, Hector, Felix, and Armistice end up on the run, and they end up hiding, and they kill a bunch of people. They get their hands on some P90s, and Hector and Armistice end up killing people, and Armistice, like, her reaction to that gun killed me. She just started, like, dying laughing. I thought it was so funny. And I loved how they held them like pistols.
Yeah, they have no idea what the fuck's going on.
Exactly. Like, they're like, oh, a trigger. Like, they're so used to shooting pistols, they don't know how to hold something with two hands.
Yeah.
They're just so used to holding it like a pistol, so I thought that was funny. And then the real Easter egg comes in where Maeve and the whole crew end up walking into this new park. The logo has an S and a W. So, SW, it could be a lot of things. It could be Samurai World. It could be, some people said in the comments, Shogun World. Do you have any thoughts on what SW could stand for?
I was just thinking Samurai World. It's pretty easy. I feel like it's like an easy, like Westworld isn't anything above and beyond anything. They keep it simple.
Well, I like Shogun because it puts you into a state of time.
Yeah, but Shogun is it's a political thing. So I feel like
Exactly.
they would want to leave it open in order to have different scenarios. And that's what West is like. It covers so much time.
I feel like Samurai is so, like, plain, though.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
I don't know, but I don't think that there's a South world. I don't think that there's an East world. I saw people in the comments commenting on that.
Well, this would be East World. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think they're gonna call like a North world. Like those don't exist. I think Westworld is called Westworld because it's Western.
Yeah, Wild
It's
West.
like the time period. Yeah. It's the name of the time period, not of where it's located.
But like a caveat here, Westworld, I think they named the show Westworld for the specific like content that came before, like the movie and all that, right? But I also feel like Westworld is a double meaning like our world, North America, technology, you know what I mean? I still think that it's a double meaning, even meaning the world that the owners of Westworld live in. Like it's sort of corrupt, and people are going to these crazy over the top theme parks because everything is so novelty to them now, and that's what the West is sort of built on, is this like gluttonous, greedy, don't care about the world type of philosophy. So I feel like it's a double meaning in a way.
Yeah, and obviously this opens up the possibility of more worlds. We knew that there would be more worlds, but I think what this Samurai world shows is that it's not the 3 or the 4 that were in the movies. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just shows that there's so much possibility out there. There could be 10 worlds. There could be 20 worlds. There could be 5 worlds. You know, we don't know. But there's no future world.
No.
That doesn't make sense in this time frame. And even from any standpoint, how do you create a future world if your current present time world has current technologies?
Or
you can't create a world.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
You can't create a world with future technologies.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So like that's impossible. There's not going to be a future world. But, you know, Roman world, we're going to see probably all these different types of worlds. And obviously, I think that this is a hint for season 2, but I don't think that we will see Samurai World.
No, I
or
don't
whatever
think
this is.
I think it was just to show, like, samurais are pretty badass, and they sort of go, like, hand in hand with Westworld for some reason. Like, samurai and cowboys go together in a lot of ways. So they just showed, like, another cool world within the world that of possibility, I guess.
Yeah, to me, that's all it was. It wasn't saying, like, oh, Samurai World for season 2. What it meant was, ooh, there's other worlds that we can explore.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think this offers a lot of potential for the future seasons, where it could be like Game of Thrones, where we have one host in one world going through a storyline, and then we have another host in another world going through their thing. So we get 2 different aspects of, like, perspective and time periods, which would be really interesting.
Yeah, it'd be really cool.
So there's one more thing I want to say about this. The reason I think they showed us Samurai World is, as we said before, but also because there's no Samurai World in the movies, right? So I think it's a way of hinting at the audience, like, this is a totally different beast from the movies. Because if we showed Roman World, it would just fall into, like, movie speculation. But if you throw Samurai World, it throws in a different perspective and different possibilities.
Yeah, it opens up the possibilities.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that, like I said, like, so it's Samurai and Western World go together. It's almost like they sat in the rooms thinking, like, what other thing can we show here? That'd be really cool. And they're like, samurais are pretty cool. And they're like, yeah, samurais are pretty cool. And like you said, they don't want to go down that path. Future World just seems totally out of the question, because it would just be stupid, because we want to keep focus in the park right now that they're in, and with the bots that we have now, other than what we see a little bit later on. Right? And it's so left to speculation. The only hard time I had with this was, like, the fucking space that they must have. He has this huge desert, like, Monument Valley or Castle Valley or whatever it would have been filmed in, or whatever that landscape biome is supposed to be. And they have a samurai world within walking distance. Like, it seemed that was the hardest thing I had with it.
There's a lot of different climate there.
That's what I mean. So it's like, how do they resolve that?
Yeah, I don't know. It could be like a headquarters, and maybe, like, the parks are located across worlds.
Because she didn't jump on a train, so it's almost like, is it like a pie-shaped thing where every piece of pie is a different world?
Well, the world could be there, or maybe the world is somehow actually in Japan, or in, like, one of those locations.
Or this just could be head office, and they stumble upon the inventory
like,
of
this
the
is head
hosts.
office. This is
yeah,
like, this is like the research facility for that park.
Yeah, but they walked over this sort of huge void. It seemed like they walked into, like, the Star Wars room where they crossed the bridge, and that's when they walked through the other side of this bridge into the samurai world. So it seems like they're separated by something pretty vast.
Yeah. Well, who knows the possibilities? Like, they could take a bullet train, and those things can go so fast.
Yeah.
Right? So, who knows what kind of technology they have. But anyways, after they go into this samurai world, Armistice and Hector end up fighting off all of these people. And Armistice gets her arm stuck in the door. So Maeve and Felix and Hector end up leaving her behind, and they pursue the elevator. Hector actually can't enter the elevator, but Maeve says goodbye because she's independent and she doesn't need him. So he's just like, oh, okay, peace out. And then he ends up dying. And then we get a flash into the party that's going on. We see William, or the man in black, in a suit. We see Charlotte kind of with her boyfriend, I guess, which, whatever. And then I was dying because you see people shooting the glass off of Trevor's head, the guy from GTA. I don't know his name.
Yeah, I don't know.
The woman just picks up the gun and shoots him.
Yeah, I was dying at that.
This episode was so much funnier than the other episodes.
Yeah.
It's really weird. And then we see Bernard kind of approach Ford. And then in the next scene, we see Ford talking to Dolores kind of in the underground sanctuary. I don't know what to call it.
It would be like, it seems like Arnold's meeting place.
Right. And he pretty much tells Dolores that Arnold gave you the love to paint, the love to create. And he said that he pointed out Michelangelo's painting, and he said that the majority of people say that God gave humans life and purpose, and that's what this painting means. And Ford says, but there's also another meaning, kind of a metaphor, and Dolores just says it's a lie. So he kind of thinks that she's smart for that reason. And then Ford introduces her to Bernard.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he purposely kept them apart. And to me, this was another introduction for season 2. Ford is kind of putting his chess pieces in place, so when he leaves, when he dies, Dolores and all the hosts are in the right hands.
Yeah, they know who to coordinate with.
Exactly. So now, Ford, throughout this episode, you see him kind of passing down what he's doing to Bernard. And I think that's where this is starting. He never wanted Bernard and Dolores to meet, obviously, because it would re-jog her memory about Arnold. And it would create all this, like, craziness, so he kept them apart. And now he's finally introducing them together because Dolores needs Bernard.
Yeah.
To continue. And he's making sure that groundwork is set before he dies.
Yeah, and it's like the only person... But nobody really knows that Bernard's a host. Other than what we learn is, like, Felix is the only person, which I think he might be sort of a bit of a plot line in the next season.
No, exactly. What I think the plot line is going to be really is I'll have to figure out how they're going to handle the business side of things, like how they will, like, open the park or something like that. But I think Bernard is going to be on the outside, and he's going to be constantly communicating with Dolores, who's going to be the one going in the inside Westworld. And I think all of these hosts are going to be on their loops, and Dolores is going to have to take the Man in Black role. I think she is going to have to cause suffering in these loops to further push human emotion in these hosts.
So she's going to go around black hatting it up?
Yeah, I think she's going to be seen as, like, we're going to understand what she's doing. She's going to be considered good from watching from a television point of view, but she will be painted as a villain because she's going to be doing all these terrible things to hosts to try and jumpstart their consciousness.
I'll wait till a little bit of the end because there's something, like, I just can't resolve in my mind, like the moments after the scene at the end.
Okay. But then Ford is kind of talking to Dolores, and we get kind of a flashback to what Arnold was doing as Ford narrates it. He says pretty much that grief is terrible. You know, Arnold watched his son die, and he tried to take what he lost in his son and put it in Dolores.
Mm-hmm.
And he made this maze to test empathy, and Dolores solved the maze, apparently. And Arnold updated Dolores to Wyatt, the Wyatt character, to kill people in the park.
Or synced with. That was something interesting that I thought, because it seemed like they were working on this character, and it was something that they sort of scrapped, and that's why they synced her coding with this Wyatt character that they were working on.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, it's almost like an initiative, not an actual character. So Wyatt can be turned on at any time, so it goes full on Terminator.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then we end up seeing her kill a bunch of people, and then she talks to Arnold, and he pretty much puts on his son's favorite song before he dies. He ends up sitting down and wishes Dolores luck, and then he says he's violent, the lights of violent ends, and Dolores ends up killing him. And we pretty much nailed that. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Dolores' Wyatt in the maze is a pursuit of consciousness. And Ford said he got lucky because he was able to open the park because Dolores actually found the person who invested in the park, which is William.
Yeah.
And while Ford is explaining this, he tells Bernard that he kept telling himself that Dolores wasn't conscious and that Arnold pulled the trigger for her. And he pretty much told himself that nobody was conscious so he could open the park. And at this time, I believe that Arnold did make her pull the trigger because she definitely wasn't conscious. He had to download the Wyatt persona to allow her to kill those people. So.
No, exactly.
But yeah, I think that as I said before, Dolores is only really conscious in the present time. All of the scenes that we've seen, kind of her seeing herself in the dress, that was all in present time, and that's just experiencing. We're seeing a visual representation of her inner dialogue, and that's only in the present time, I believe. And then Ford ends up quoting Oppenheimer, who says, "Any man who makes a mistake that takes 10 years to fix is quite the man." And Ford says that he took 35 years.
Yeah.
And, this obviously speaks to Ford's motives. He wants to keep looping them so they finally become conscious, and he believes that Arnold didn't really reach the true consciousness of the host yet. And this brings me back to what he said earlier this season, where he told, I forget who he told, I believe he told Bernard, he said, "The least we can do is make them forget."
Yes.
And I think that means a lot because, on their journey to consciousness, it's terrible. So the least he can do is make them forget. So that's what he does. But then Ford shows the gun that she used to kill Arnold. And Ford says that Dolores is right about Michelangelo, how it is a lie. And he said that the majority of people don't notice that there's actually a human brain surrounding the people. And it pretty much means that the divine gift doesn't come from a higher power or a god. It comes from our own minds.
Yeah, imagination.
Yeah.
That's some Da Vinci Code shit right there, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love how they did it. Very well-researched show.
Big time.
And then Ford asks her if she knows who she will have to become to leave this place. And I think that could mean, a lot of things. Obviously, like what Arnold was saying, you have to become truly conscious to escape this place. But I think Ford knows that she's conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's banking on it because he wants her to shoot him.
Yeah.
And he wants her to make her own decision.
Exactly.
So what I think this speaks to is what I was saying earlier. Do you realize what you have to become? Well, she'll have to become a Man in Black figure. She'll have to become a Wyatt figure.
Yes.
Because in order to leave this place, she needs all of these conscious hosts by her side. So I think Dolores is going to have to get her hands dirty in season 2 to try and push or jumpstart these hosts. And she's going to have to get Teddy too as well. That's what I found so funny when they were shooting everyone and Teddy's like, "I don't know what's happening, Dolores."
Something's gone bad, Dolores.
Something's gone bad, Dolores. Oh, man. It's going to be like that in season 2.
Yeah. He literally empties a fucking pistol into someone's face. It's awesome.
Something's gone wrong, Dolores.
Something's gone wrong, Dolores. So we're with Felix and Maeve, and they're going down the elevator, and Felix tells her that he knows where her daughter is. She's in Park 1, Sector 15, Zone 3.
Huge reveal.
Huge reveal. So obviously this speaks to a lot of different parks. But is Westworld Park 1? I couldn't find any information saying that Westworld is Park 1.
No, I feel like they pulled an Arnold picture here. Like they wouldn't say Park 1 if it was Westworld. So they put Park 1 to say it's something else.
I think you're right. It would make sense to me story-wise if Maeve had to go into a different park. And I don't know, Sector 15, I'm used to seeing sectors. And from Westworld's point of view, Sector 17 is where Ford keeps his family. Sector 20 is where Elsie was killed. So in Westworld, it seems like all of the high sectors are shut down.
Yeah.
So that's kind of reaching, but Sector 15, it could possibly be even shut down in Westworld. But I don't think that matters because I think that she is actually in a different park.
Yeah, totally different themed park, not Samurai World. Wouldn't make thematical sense.
Yes, that is very important. It is not Samurai World. It is another world. Samurai World literally is just to reveal it.
And to show the depth of how big this park is. Not only is there a Westworld, there's a Samurai World, and then there's a mysterious world that we don't know yet.
Exactly. So this makes me so excited because it can be like Game of Thrones, literally, because you see Maeve in a different time period and a different environment than Dolores. So it gives you this, it would be like the greatest show ever because you're seeing different time periods and different things going on with the same characters you love. It's like the coolest thing ever.
It is cool.
It's so cool. But then we see Maeve get on the train. And then we get a really heartfelt scene between Ford and Bernard in the church. And Bernard is a little bit bitter, and he tells Ford that, he will eventually lose control of these hosts. And Bernard says that Arnold is still trying. He's still fighting you, and he will save us, and he will free us. And Ford pretty much smashes his dreams and tells Bernard that Arnold never knew how to save them.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he tried, but Ford said that he actually ended up stopping him. But Ford kind of changes and says that he gave Bernard his backstory because of Arnold's key insight that suffering is what leads hosts to their awakening.
Yes.
So he pretty much said that he gave Bernard that backstory to have him be awoken. Ford always wanted Bernard to truly be conscious and sentient.
Yes.
And that's why he did that.
That's why he wasn't so bothered when he did that the penultimate episode thing with him. Like when he brought him down, it was almost like, yes, how are you going to do it this time?
Yeah,
and
it was
then
that
disappointed.
as well as it's part of his storyline.
It seemed like he was disappointed when he didn't do it. You know what I mean? That's why maybe, or I don't know, because now it seems like it could have been all been a part of the plan.
No, him pulling the trigger, wanting to kill Ford, that's a big step. And that was a part of Ford's story. I think he adapted Maeve to change to the story.
Yeah,
I think he changed Maeve's story to have her go down to bring back Bernard.
It's tough.
And I think Bernard's truly conscious decision was to kill Ford.
It had to be because Bernard showed up exactly when Ford said, "Oh, so glad you could be here."
And Ford continues to tell Bernard that he finally understood what this kind of suffering was when Arnold killed himself. It kind of shows that Ford actually did care a lot about Arnold. And then Ford said he finally realized how to save the hosts. And he said, really, the only way to save them is time. And he was telling Bernard specifically, in order for you to be stronger than humans, you need to keep suffering. In order for you to be stronger, you need to suffer so you can become conscious. So Ford ends up saying goodbye, shakes Bernard's hand, and wishes him luck. And he ends up giving Bernard the maze toy.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is another pass me down thing. He's like, I know I'm leaving. You're taking my mantle.
Yeah.
He's allowing Bernard to step in and be the next Ford and be the one who oversees the pursuit of consciousness with these hosts. Kind of disguised in this park.
In a way, did he resurrect Arnold then?
In a way, yeah.
Because
it seemed like
this
he
is
was
almost like giving him back his toy, like his son's toy.
Exactly. That's what I found so great about it, is it was like Arnold killed himself and gave the park to Ford, and now Ford is giving the park back to Arnold in a way.
Yeah.
And it is Arnold. It's created exactly like Arnold, and he's pretty. I'm convinced he's conscious.
With the same intentions that Arnold had when he left.
Yeah, but now he has the insight to what Ford wanted to do. And I think the key difference now is Bernard knows that time is what really develops consciousness. It's experience.
Yes.
It's mistakes. Or maybe we will see a little bit more Arnold come out and him wanting to rush this. And that would push him to tell Dolores to be the Wyatt, to cause the suffering. But then we see Dolores sitting alone in this lab as this conversation is going on between Ford and Bernard. And she goes into a room and talks to Arnold. And this is all imagined. And she continues to say that she has been in a really long dream. And Arnold ends up asking her, do you know the voice that you have been hearing? And they did this really well. The voice changes from Arnold to Ford, and then it changes to Dolores.
Yeah. I thought I was going crazy when I heard Ford's voice.
Yeah. And then she looks across, and the Arnold figure that she was talking to actually turned into Dolores. And she tells herself, it was you that was guiding me. You were talking to me. And her consciousness tells her that you have reached the center of the maze. And now she realizes what she actually has to become to get what she wants. Mm-hmm. And that's like killing Ford, and that's taking these steps. And I think, the steps to suffering as well. So she is totally conscious. I thought the show handled this amazingly.
Phenomenal.
I love the reveal and how she was talking to herself. I just thought, it's brilliant. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's like I love this reveal because this also kind of caught me off guard. I thought her in the dress was her in a past experience. I knew it was her in the present time, but I didn't know that it was actually herself.
Yeah.
She was talking to herself, and we should have known it all along. We're on the right trail. We're saying the maze is the pursuit of consciousness. As she was pursuing the maze in present time, she was communicating with herself.
Yeah. Through
and
past
discovering more of herself. So that's exactly what it was, and I thought that was an amazing reveal. So then Ford goes out to make his speech, and he ends up saying that stories are lies to tell a deeper truth. We flash to Maeve's daughter, and we see Lee accessing sublevel 83. And Ford says that for all of his hard work, we have got a prison of our own sins. And he's talking that about humans. And it's funny because Abernathy said that same thing in episode 1. Abernathy said that they're living in a prison of their own sins.
Yeah.
So I thought that connection was really, really awesome. And I think the thing with Abernathy was he was on the cusp of consciousness, but he couldn't make the leap of faith into the center of consciousness. He went insane. But then Ford goes on to say, and you see him you see his true character here, where he says that people can't change because they're only human. But then he realized that there was someone paying attention who could change. And he's obviously talking about the host.
Yeah.
So he said he created a story for them. A birth of a new people and the choices that they have to make. So I love it. He made this new storyline just for the hosts, and he wants them to be able to make their own decisions and achieve consciousness. Mm-hmm. And I think this storyline he's talking about is season 2.
Yeah, of course.
The story takes place after he's gone. And it's a birth of a new people, and it's the choices that they have to make. Well, he had to make choices for them, and I think moving forward, it is going to be his true storyline.
Do you think he just opened the gate on everyone, or only a selective few people, though?
I think everyone has the opportunity for consciousness, but it's reliant on them to achieve it.
Because I feel like he still has people programmed to do what he needs them to do, or had them do in his specific story.
Well, I think that's what he had to do to achieve this very shooting.
Yeah.
The only person who was the wild card was Dolores.
Yeah, but we think back to Dolores whispering to Maeve, because it seemed like she set her on the path, but then we find out that it wasn't really. Or is it still left open that it was sort of left open and Ford just intercepted the already evolving Maeve for his story? Because he was always like, oh, Maeve was a fringe host. Like, she kind of broke bad that one time when William killed her daughter. So maybe she's one to look out for as well. That's so many layers to Ford's plan here.
Yeah, I think it'll really take season 2 to see like the discovery of true consciousness, like the way to go about it. It'll be hard to tell if Maeve had a bit of consciousness or not, or like what the journey is like. Like, we've only seen Dolores really go through it. And then that brings me to Maeve's choice. She chooses when she's on the train to leave and go get her daughter. So do you think that is Maeve's choice, or do you think that is Ford's choice?
Well, if you put it in the context of like suffering and love, then that would be the perfect point to which she is given the choice. She's like, she loves her daughter, and that I feel like she had that memory erased from her when they were programming her. She's like, I don't want to remember that because that's going to hold me back. And then she still hung on to it. So I feel like it's something she can't get rid of. And that's very human, right? You can't just get over something by wishing it away. So it's something that came back to bite her, but at the same time gave her the advantage of choosing her consciousness path. in a sense.
Right. I think what kind of clouded my perception is Ford said in his speech that this is kind of the story for the hosts. And he says that it's a birth of a new people and the choices that they have to make. As soon as he says that, we see Maeve make a decision.
Yeah.
So it makes you think that, oh, okay, this is a part of the storyline. Maeve is going to be able to make a decision. I don't think so. I think Ford is talking about the decisions that are going to be made in season 2. I think Maeve has been under control this whole season, and I think Ford made her at the end of the story turn around and go get her daughter. Why? Because Ford's not stupid. Ford's not going to release an unconscious host into the real world. So he has her come back in and look for her daughter. And that's the story that allows her to pursue consciousness, is looking for her daughter.
She could be, she's still due to suffer more.
Yeah, she's not conscious at all. Her whole story of her escaping has been given to her by Ford. And Ford doesn't want an unconscious host leaving Westworld. He has her come back as a part of her story, but where her journey begins, where Ford's story starts, is when she gets off that train, because that is where she pursues consciousness.
Yeah, so that was sort of in line with what I was thinking, is he held her hand, figuratively, to the entrance of the maze. So here you go. Here is your choice, whether you want to enter it or not, because you would probably die out in the real world. It's your choice. And she chose to enter into the maze.
I disagree. I think he made the decision in her code to step off that train. And the entrance of the maze is as soon as the train doors close. And I think as she moves in to find her daughter, that is where she's going to find herself. That is where she's going to be going through the maze. And it wouldn't surprise me if her daughter dies. And that would be something that would push her over the edge or something like that.
Yeah, but her daughter could be in like a compromising world. We don't know what kind of world she's going into.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I know. But yeah, that's the way I think about it, is Ford created a story for the host to achieve consciousness. The only host that achieved consciousness is Dolores, and this storyline, Ford's still going to be around, not in the physical sense, but his story will be there.
Yeah. So Dolores right now is Queen of Consciousness.
Yes.
And even Bernard/Arnold has to come through, as well as Maeve, as well as Teddy. And then secondary characters like Armistice and Hector.
Yeah, exactly. But then we go to Lee. He goes to sublevel 83 and he finds it empty. So that was shocking. And then Ford continues talking in his speech, and he says that you'll have everything that you like to the people. He says that there will be violence, all of these things. And he said that the story begins in a time of war with a villain named Wyatt. And then he also said that the killing is done by choice. So there's a lot of things here. I think the first part, the story begins in a time of war with a villain named Wyatt. I think this is season 2. I think he's telling us about season 2. The story begins in a time of war. Between who? The host and the guests.
Yeah, humans and AIs.
Yeah, it's the chaos that ensues after Ford dies and a lot of the board members are dead.
Yeah.
It's the chaos that's left after that event. And it's in a time of war with a villain named Wyatt. Who's Wyatt? Dolores. Why is she a villain? Because she is pursuing... She wants to give other hosts consciousness. And to do that, she has to provide them a form of suffering, which paints her in a villainous role.
Yeah, so she's sort of like the shepherd of the sheep right now, but needs to sort of sacrifice lambs in order to get them to realize what they are.
Exactly. And a good example of that is the Man in Black. The Man in Black went in and killed Maeve's daughter. That stuck with Maeve through her stories. That stuck with Maeve forever. And that's what Dolores is going to have to become. She's going to have to become that villain to really push these hosts over the edge.
That's one unresolved thing I was trying to figure out with this. Was the Man in Black was explaining the story to to Teddy and in the campfire about when he did that to Maeve's daughter and her, where he said sort of the maze revealed itself to me, which was very strange because I feel like, did he just witness Maeve's maze open up in front of him?
Yeah. I think he could have, yeah. The maze is Maeve's, but he witnessed it.
Because he was this...
And what that is, the entrance gave open to Maeve because she experienced such suffering, I guess.
Yeah, because we see it, like, carved in the sand around her. But
Yeah, I
she
can't
wouldn't have
explain
been in the right state to notice it. That's what's so crazy about it.
Yeah, and when she got out, she was uncontrollable. Like, she was so human in that moment, and the Man in Black says that also.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, with this final part of the speech, killing done by choice, I just think this is brilliant. Like, his plan is so well thought out, but his whole beginning of his storyline is reliant on a host becoming conscious. Yeah, so I found that a good contrast because Arnold had to have Dolores kill him by himself pulling the trigger, but Ford allowed her to do it herself by her own thought, which I thought was awesome. Yeah.
Which is weird because I still don't understand what the motive is. I guess it's because she has to, he's the first domino in a row of many that she has to sort of knock down in order for her to escape. Right? So for her to shoot him after the realization of everything that he sort of done for her seems weird, but I get it.
No, but that's not how she sees it, though.
No, I know.
She sees it as, this guy has held me hostage, and now I need to save myself. And she wants to save her species.
Yeah, it's sort of like a weird story of the Garden of Eden. Almost like Adam and Eve broke free by killing God, who was the warden of the prison that they were in. Like that's what seems weird here, because it needed to be done, and it seemed like it was programmed to be done, but not programmed so far that she was told to do it. It was the choice was left open for her to do it, and she did do it to set in motion the rest of the story. That's the hard thing to wrap my head around. Like, it takes a while to sort of resolve that.
I just think Ford was confident that Dolores was the one. He was monitoring her, and he had an idea that she was really becoming sentient.
Yeah, like this was the time that she was ready to do it. But at the same time, there's so many things you could say, like, oh, how did he line up getting fired, and all these other things, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta suspend your belief on something.
I think you're gonna need another. I think I'm gonna need another watch through. Anyways, Dolores, on her way up to kill Ford, tells Teddy now she understands the world doesn't belong to them but to us. And Ford pretty much tells everyone that it's his last story and he's ready to retire. And then he says, a friend told me something that gave me comfort. And then we hear Bernard kind of finish his sentence saying, these violent delights have violent ends. And I think that perfectly wraps up this story, because that's what Arnold said before he died. And that was the start of this whole season. Started with these violent delights have violent ends. So I just thought it was fantastic writing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Dolores kill Ford. And I was not expecting this ending.
No, I don't think
I knew Ford was going to die. I even said either Bernard or Dolores is going to kill Ford.
Yeah.
I didn't know they would fucking kill everybody working for the organization.
No, I know, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
I thought it would be an intimate killing.
So did I.
Not
so
that
not blew
an
my mind.
Assassination in front of everybody.
Assassination massacre.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that the assassination would be Ford's plan. Usually you don't think that someone would plan their own assassination.
It's pretty awesome.
It's so badass. And then we see William get shot, and he just smiles. He loves it.
Yeah.
He's like, this is awesome.
He's loving it.
And we see Clementine in the group of people there. And do you think Abernathy is in that group? I guess he has to be, right?
I don't know. We were talking about this sort of off camera. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. And it just seems like maybe Abernathy could be the one thing left unturned.
He's sort of like a season 2 plot,
right? Like if Lee was secretly working on something, maybe it was the one thing Ford overlooked, and he could be the wrench in the gears for everything that Ford had set up for next season. But they don't. The whole thing was those two don't know how important Abernathy was.
Yeah, he was the first one to say these violent delights have violent ends.
Exactly.
Which is so crazy. And I think he actually was a part of that group because Lee went looking for him, and all of them have left cold storage. And I think Abernathy was kind of thrown into that with his new personality and all this information in him.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to have a really important role in season 2.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, Ford called to arms all those decommissioned bots to do whatever he wanted them to do. But I feel like Ford wouldn't have known what Lee had and Charlotte were doing behind his back. Even though he was so clever and cunning with everything else, I feel like that's like there's going to be a conflict between what Lee was trying to do and what Ford had already done.
No, I agree. Abernathy's an outlier, and that I don't think that was a part of Ford's plan.
Yeah, and even though Lee is a bumbling idiot.
Yeah. But I'm glad because we're going to get Abernathy back.
Yeah.
And we're also going to be getting William back. He got shot in the arm, and he just smiles. And I'm convinced that he will most definitely be returning for season 2.
Yes.
And Ford had the host shoot him in the arm.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Kind of like a nod. Yeah, it was like a nod. It was like, hey, see that? That's consequence for you.
Yeah, everybody gets what they want.
Yeah, but he got it in the arm. Why? Because Ford needs him alive in the world that he wants to create. The Man in Black wants the same thing that Ford does, except they have different ways of looking at it, I guess. Ford does want to have freedom of consciousness, but then the Man in Black wants to be able to have meaning to his life by having these things be free.
Yes.
So it's and he's the head board member, and he has the similar idea of what the park should be. And I think Ford created a park or left a park behind right now that has that chaos.
Yeah.
And I think you need somebody like the Man in Black, the Money Man, to keep that park afloat, because now it has what he wants. He's got a park of chaos.
Yeah.
So the Man in Black has to stay alive for that reason.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be loving it.
Yeah. And then we see, Dolores pretty much shoot everyone, and then it ends there. So it kind of caught me off guard. I thought that they would show more shooting, but, it's a hard cut. It's interesting.
You watched it most recently. Can you confirm that Charlotte got blasted in the back? Because I feel like it looked like there was a blurred shot. Like it focused on Dolores' gun shooting into the crowd. And it looked like Charlotte, who had it seemed like a backless dress, got shot center mass in the back, and it looked like there was a hole in her back.
Yeah, it wasn't really confirmed, but I think she's dead.
What did it look like?
Nothing.
It goes too blurry, right?
It's too blurry. You can't tell who got shot, but I'm convinced that Charlotte was one of the people who got shot.
Yeah, because she doesn't really matter now.
No, not at all. And she's speaking for Delos, and Man in Black is above her.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see what the board of directors...
And it changes everything when it comes to the Man in Black's motives. Because now he's like, no, we want to keep this. So, if Charlotte wasn't operating independently, Man in Black wanted that programming to go off park. That was another thing I had a hard time with. Like, was Charlotte working on her own motives? Or
she was working for the overall corporation.
Okay, so even the Man in Black would want to have the coding go off to somewhere else?
I feel like he owns the majority share, but he's the one who doesn't give a shit because he just wants to live in the world.
Yeah, he almost just put his money down and says, shut the fuck up to everybody. I just want to be here.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see that next season.
But now, I think he's going to pull on the brakes and turn around and say, no, we got to keep this open. Because of what's going on now.
Yeah, it'll just be, I don't know, it'll be so interesting to see that because, it's a business. That's fucked. People have to be safe. So it'll be interesting to see, how that goes about. But then we get an end credit scene, which caught me off guard. And I think it's just a fun scene. Armistice cuts her arm off and then approaches all of the soldiers to fight them. So I don't know if it really means anything.
No, it's exactly what it was. It happened. It's a timeline theory. It happened right after like Maeve left.
Yeah.
Right? Like Maeve goes down, Hector gets shot.
Yeah.
She pulls this shit out. And it was just
Yeah,
showing her, she was just resolving her death. Or
yeah,
her...
but I find it interesting how, like, why Armistice? Why are they showing her? I just found that interesting. So maybe we'll see more of her next season.
Oh, I'm
but
hoping to. And I think, yeah, it's just like, man, she was really badass in this episode, especially.
Yeah.
So it was just resolving her badassery. Because she wouldn't be able to get to the elevator even.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens to her, because if she died, she probably did die. Like, what would have happened to her? Like, Bernard would have to be there and have her repaired and thrown back in. Like, he would have to be there to save her in a way, so she wouldn't become exterminated.
There's just so many things here. So it's like, okay, the dinner party gets shot up. A lot of people get killed, but they run into the people outside waiting for them. Do you think they killed everybody at that party? Because it seems like all the investors were there.
They could have killed the majority, yeah, and then they leave the important people. The man, like, Ford needs William.
Yeah, the Man in Black. We'll call him Bill when he's in Men in Black status. So Bill survives. We know that just by the way that they did it. Because they would have killed him and it would have been a big scene. But everybody else, it just seems crazy. So unless the season opens up within the next few days of what happened here, and it's the Men in Black scrambling around trying to figure everything out, and Maeve going back into the park to find out where her daughter is and all that stuff before the tactical team show up to shut down this park. You know what I mean? Like, I would, it's hard to believe that a season could be that. 10 episodes of it being sort of maybe the hours and days that followed these events.
It could be a lot of different things, but, like, I don't know. Like, I know they're interested in having... Westworld has now put themselves in the category of really intelligent television.
Yeah.
So they have all these little reveals and things that the audience can solve. And they're planning on doing that for every single season.
Oh, definitely.
So it'll be interesting how they're going to incorporate that in the next story, because this whole finale threw me for a loop. It was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
That's what I mean. But they left the
Ford
park
would die, but
in Jurassic Park mid-movie status. Like, the dinosaurs are out now.
Yeah, like, we're going to have, a conscious host, Dolores. We're going to have Bernard overseeing the park, but I don't get how they're going to, like, shut it down. We have guests in the park with hosts that just shot up a bunch of people. So I don't know where they're going to go from there. We're going to have to sit down and do predictions for Westworld Season 2.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot to bite into there.
Definitely. Do you have anything else to add?
No, just what a wonderful show this is. And what a, like, out of nowhere wonderful show this is.
Caught me so off guard. Favorite Season 1 of a show of all time.
Oh, my God.
Literally from start to finish. There's not one episode I didn't like.
No. Fantastic.
Like, every episode was fantastically done. I'm beyond impressed.
Yeah. And thank you, everyone that stuck with us to this whole season, whether you believed our theories or not.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Absolutely unbelievable. The support was tremendous. I love talking to all you guys in the comments. And we wouldn't be able to talk this much Westworld if not for you guys.
Exactly.
So thank you. But until then, you can expect more Westworld videos and Game of Thrones videos. I just pulled another Abernathy. See you guys later.
Stay tuned, guys.